That is a ridiculous question, and I
Yes or no?
No.
I will take that as a yes.
I am not going to respond to that kind of personal attack, which is not a question.
From the very start, it's clear where this is headed. This isn't a genuine line of questioning. It's a carefully staged political takedown. What we're witnessing is a veteran diplomat, someone who has served the country for decades under several presidents, being put on display for a public smear by a congresswoman who appears more focused on producing viral moments than on governing. This kind of conduct highlights a deeper problem in today's political climate. The goal isn't to uncover the truth. Instead, it's about embarrassing and shutting down opponents. It's no longer about policy. It's about putting on a show. We'll watch the entire exchange first, and then break down why this kind of political grandstanding.
Mr. Adams, in 1991, you pleaded guilty to 2 counts of withholding information from Congress regarding your involvement in the Iran-Contra affair, for which you were later pardoned by President George H.W. Bush. I fail to understand why members of this committee or the American people should find any testimony that you give today to be truthful.
If I can respond to that.
It wasn't a question.
On February,
that was not a question. That was I reserve the right to my time.
It is not right.
That was not a question.
Committee can attack
on February 8th,
who is not permitted to reply.
That was not a question. Thank you for your participation. On February 8th, 1982, you testified before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee about U.S. policy in El Salvador. In that hearing, you dismissed as communist propaganda report about the massacre of El Mozote, in which more than 800 civilians, including children as young as 2 years old, were brutally murdered by U.S.-trained troops. During that massacre, some of those troops bragged about raping a 12-year-old girl before they killed them. Girls before they killed them. You later said that the U.S. policy in El Salvador was a fabulous achievement. Yes or no, do you still think so?
From the day that President Duarte was elected in a free election to this day, El Salvador has been a democracy. That's a fabulous achievement.
Yes or no, do you think that massacre was a fabulous achievement that happened under our watch?
That is a ridiculous question, and I
yes or no?
No.
I will take that as a yes.
I am not going to respond to that kind of personal attack, which is not a question.
Yes or no, would you support an armed faction within Venezuela that engages in war crimes, crimes against humanity or genocide, if you believe they were serving U.S. interest, as you did in Guatemala, El Salvador, and Nicaragua?
I am not going to respond to that question. I'm sorry. I don't think this entire line of questioning is meant to be real questions, and so I will not reply.
Whether under your watch, a genocide will take place, and you will look the other way because American interests were being upheld, is a fair question, because the American people want to know that anytime we engage a country, that we think about what our actions could be and how we believe our values are being furthered. That is my question. Will you make sure that human rights are not violated and that we uphold international and human rights?
I suppose there is a question in there, and the answer is that the entire thrust of American policy in Venezuela is to support the Venezuelan people's effort to restore democracy to their country. That's our policy.
I don't think anybody disputes that. The question I had for you is that does the interest of the United States include protecting human rights and include protecting people against genocide?
That is always the position of the United States.
Thank you. I yield back my time.
All right, you've now seen the entire exchange, and it's just as troubling as it seemed at the beginning. Let's be clear about what we just watched. That wasn't a hearing. It looked more like a show trial. First, let's talk about Elliott Abrams. He's someone with decades of experience in foreign policy, having served under multiple administrations. Does he have a controversial past? Yes. Anyone involved in high-stakes international policy for over 40 years is bound to face criticism. At one point, he pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor and was later pardoned. Representative Ilhan Omar raised this history immediately, not necessarily to establish a broader argument, but in a way that framed everything he might say afterward. Rather than debating the substance of his views, the approach focused on discrediting him personally. You can also notice how, whenever he attempted to add context or fully respond to the questions, he was frequently interrupted with phrases like, "That wasn't the question," or "I reserve my time." It didn't feel like a dialogue. Instead, it came across as a prepared monologue. Now, looking at Representative Omar's questioning style, the exchange shows how complex geopolitical issues, many dating back decades, were condensed into simple yes or no questions. Situations involving civil conflict and international policy rarely fit into such narrow answers. Critics argue that this format can force statements into sound bites rather than encourage a deeper explanation. At one point, Abrams pushed back and described one of the questions as unfair, arguing that the broader historical context, such as the eventual establishment of democratic institutions in El Salvador, was being ignored in the framing of the question. Supporters and critics of both figures interpret the exchange differently. Some view Omar's questioning as a necessary effort to hold officials accountable for past policies. Others see it as political theater that prioritizes dramatic moments over substantive discussion. What the clip ultimately highlights is the broader tension that often shows up in congressional hearings today, a clash between attempts to score political points and the need for careful, serious debate about foreign policy. For many viewers, it raises the question of whether these hearings are still functioning as forums for thoughtful governance or, increasingly, as stages for political messaging. If you're analyzing moments like this, it's worth stepping back and looking at the full context, the history involved, and the different perspectives on what accountability and effective oversight should look like.